Which tasks take up the most time from you each month? Marketing managers, here, what are the tasks that take up the most time every month? Let's see about that. Here we go. Reporting. Reports between all systems. We've talked about that. Creating report. Do you see a theme here? Is there a theme? Review calls with vendors. Because they're the most enjoyable calls, aren't they? Here's how most vendor calls go. Hey, man, you're crushing it. You're crushing it. Now, would you spend more money? That's the average quick summary of a vendor call. When was the last time you said, man, we screwed up. We weren't watching your shit. We wasted a few $1,000, but we're going to fix that problem. That happens sometimes, doesn't it? Wouldn't you love your vendor to be that transparent and say, man, we screwed up this month. I'm sorry. Instead of talking about some weird metrics, hoping that you don't ask the question, the hard question. Explaining, analyzing data, measuring shit. Okay, there we go. Holding vendors accountable. Ladies and gentlemen, the people on this stage represent hundreds of dealership rooftops, and everyone who just voted here is telling us we need to fix some things. It's just not sustainable. Everyone in this room who's managing multiple rooftops, AutoNation's here, Sonic is here, Lithia's here, Larry Miller's here, big groups. And if they're saying every month, the pain of my vendor meetings and my reporting just sucks up all my time and I can't get anything done. Here we go. If we had a magic lamp to help me with job performance, I would ask for, if I had a magic lamp, dealers in the room, marketing manager in the room, if you had a magic lamp that would help your job performance, you would ask for automate everything, return on ad spend. Thomas Gage and I talk a lot about that. Yep, return on ad spend. What is my return on ad spend? All my data in one spot, Vista Dash. Shameless plug. Solid education from vendors, integrated reporting, educated general managers. Ooh, a little shot over to the business side. Yeah, there are general managers in the room. Accurate data. We talked about the trust gap, right? We talked about the trust gap this morning. One program to do it all. That sounds great. Brian Geithner at Cox says, we got that solution right now. Or he wants to have that solution for sure. Listen, ecosystems are going to dominate our conversation for the next few years, and we need to figure out how to work together and how to get our products talking better. Integrated, automated dashboards. That is exactly what dealers are needing, and as Peter talked about, even a trusted hub, a safe place where maybe the Cox ecosystem and the CDK ecosystem can coexist to help multi-store groups make a fair bake-off or an optimization. Holistic strategy between vendors. These are some great things, integration. So let's talk to our panel. We have 2 microphones. Not all questions you may feel comfortable answering. I made the point this morning that the biggest goal that we could have leaving here tomorrow is that we see data as a strategic asset. We spend so much time finding the right location for our dealership. We spend so much time making sure that the interior looks right. We spend so much time thinking about how we're going to reach the marketplace, yet we're not organizing our data. So to our panel here, does your organization see marketing data as a strategic asset? And if not, why? Anyone want to pick that up?
Sure.
Sure.
Yes, it's It's how we gauge what we're going to be spending throughout the year, each quarter. The data helps us predict where we're going to move our money, what decisions we're going to make. If you're not on the data train, if you're not analyzing your data, if you're not digging into it, I think you're behind the game, and you should pay attention to it or pay attention to the people that are, learn from them. I guess if you were to look at your old school methodologies, looking at your people that are on the lot, how they came, you have your billboards, your TV, your radio. Now it's all digital and you can actually track it, and watching the data trends and making decisions on it, and then doing A/B testing, it's huge. So overall, just the overall forecasting of trends makes a big difference for me.
Great.
And for our group.
Others? Ben?
So I think your lead-in kind of hit on it. We have data in all of our departments at the dealership, right? Finance department, the GM knows how to look at finance and say if finance is working. Can look at fix and knows if fix is working, right? Well, looking at the John Wanamaker quote, shouldn't we care about that money that we're spending on our advertising? It only makes sense to use the data, figure out how to use it. I know it's harder than, it's easier said than done, right? But we're all here because we want to find a way to make more from that data, right? So
Yep.
in short, of course it matters.
Yeah. And how many people were in Kelly Owen's workshop from Oracle? Yeah. Was that a great workshop, yes or no? You know what some people said? It was like unbelievable. Kelly just said, give me your Facebook IDs. I will unlock some audiences for you that will just give you a more effective advertising strategy. Someone said that 45 minutes made the conference worthwhile. How do we unlock the knowledge, the strategies, the data to make a better world? Peter, just because you spoke so eloquently before, obviously you love this conversation. How about your organization? Do you believe that your organization supports your passion for clean data?
I would say they would want to support it, but I got to answer no to this question, unfortunately. I don't think they know the Access username or password to Google Analytics, so I'll start there, right?
Right.
So that already is enough to say that they don't, in theory. So we're very financially driven, which is how we, built the framework for automotive. But are we taking the intellectual knowledge from where the ship is going and helping us steer? Not so much, not as much as we could, unfortunately. We have a slightly different market. We have a lot of repeat business. We have 2 Range Rover stores. We get to enjoy that, especially in the same city. So there's good market share there. So we get to grow from that. But had we not had that, or when the 2 stores that will open up I think we're going to find a very, very big push towards understanding what this marketing data is going to mean for our future and how we can monetize it, and what it's going to mean for how we spend our money, because it's really easy to spend money with AutoTrader when you have the entire DMA, and then you can pick and choose which cars go up for spotlights, right? Yep. So the answer is no. Is it valuable? Of course. I see it. I'm trying to make sure I express it in a certain way, even to the GMs, but they don't have the knowledge yet to engage in that conversation, so I try to bridge that gap as often as I can.
Joe High did a workshop. How many people were you in Joe High's workshop? Okay, great. One of the things that I love about what they're doing with Apollo is really seeing that pump in, pump out report data, looking at DMS data, looking where your ideal audience is, see where your gaps, using data instead of just doing a radius. Doesn't that make sense? Meaning, if you felt that your DMS data was important, if you felt that that pump in, pump out data was important, shouldn't you be applying that as a strategic asset to improve your targeting and message? Yet so few agencies are doing it. Here's another question. And you don't have to mention the name of your agency partners. This morning, we talked about a connected ecosystem. Christian Bartons from Datalicious is going to turn your minds inside out about the possibilities that we have to really get to a working crooked yardstick or an attribution model that will help us turn those levers to increase showroom traffic. But I think you're starting to realize, how many people feel like you had data overload in the first 2 hours here? For data overload. So you don't even want to raise your hand, do you? People came up to me, my head's spinning. So guys, when you look at the potential that's out here, are the agency partners you're dealing with today, do you feel that they have the resources to stay ahead? Paul, what about you?
I don't know, this question applies to me a lot. You know, maybe bigger picture. I think our expectation is that they are using big data sources like these, but either they don't tell you, right? Or you they kind of allude to, we use things like those. And you know, I think it's important for us to know what the sources are for data like this, and this third-party technology, because that lends some credence to what you're telling me. And when we all had the conversation earlier today about trust, right? Knowing these kind of things and attributing these kind of things, that's important to us, and it sure makes our conversation a lot shorter, and we can get to the point quicker.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing. Like Oracle and Adobe and some of these other companies are doing amazing things, Equifax and Experian, some amazing things with profiling data sets. It brings credibility to agency solutions, but like you said, Paul, rarely, I don't think I've heard one agency talk about their relationship on how they're using Oracle data. And there's a lot of agencies that are. Anyone else on the panel? Do you think your agencies are keeping up or can keep up with this change?
I think they can keep up. I don't think it's a, you know, Cox Automotive doesn't have a problem with resources. I think it's, you know, everyone continually puts us back on like, well, you've got to ask for it. You're the dealer. You got to ask. You got to demand it. Well, if you're a single point store, who are you demanding? They'll just say, okay, we don't want your business. I've got 22 stores, but it's splintered. You know, I got CDK, I've got Cox Automotive, I've got a couple other things. So do they have the resources? Yes, but you know, they do a really good job of hiding the knowledge from the dealer, so we don't know what to ask for. So, you know, from a vendor responsibility standpoint, they should be bringing a lot of this to the party, as opposed to expecting us to come to things like this and then go back and go, okay, we need it now. And CDK, no offense, CDK says, you know what, we'll get this PCG stuff fixed on your website, no big deal. And they'll keep playing, yeah, I got to talk to this guy, just 8 months from now, I forget about it, they forget about it, we never get there. It just kind of happens. And if I'm not there, something happens, I get hit by a bus. I came here, I got a book full of notes that someone can go through, but they're not going to be able to read it. So ultimately, the onus of this has to go back to vendor and that valuable vendor relationship. Are you interested in being partners? Are you interested in coming in for 90 days? Are you interested in signing me up for a long contract? So I'm, you know, then I got $30,000 a year person telling me where to spend $30,000 a month. Yeah. So, and they, you know, they don't know about this stuff. So,
and I just want to make one point. Over the last 3 months, as I've worked on this new book, which I hope is the first in a series of discussions to elevate the education that this industry needs. But I remember I went up to Seattle, and Max and his team showed me their data layer analytics. And I've been talking to CDK for 10 years. I never, ever, ever saw it. They have every little piece of that website tracked down to an Adobe, you know, analytics. And I'm like, shit, where have you been hiding this? You know? I talked to James Grace, and James Grace said, Brian, we're working on this, we're working on this. And I say, how come your dealers don't know about it? And here's the problem. These bigger ecosystems actually have so much politics, they can't brag. They get watered down. It was like, well, we can't say that. We're a public company. It's like, bullshit. The dealers should know what you have in your pipeline, how you're doing it, your relationships with Oracle. When I was talking to Max about his real-time bidding and updating and removal. I was like, Max, how come no one hears about that? I said, that's really cool. He's like, well, maybe our marketing department's not, doing as best as they could. And it's right. We're hearing this. Like, we shouldn't be having to beg the vendor community to share the shit that they're working on. I mean, that's really helpful. Anyone else on this question? How do you feel your agencies are handling this pace of change?
I'll chime in for a second. My agency, I just started with July. I think that they can and they do. That's the only reason why I chose them, because they have LiveRamp integration, Oracle, BlueKai, Loadame, and I get to play around in the dashboard and pick my audience, right? As I entered the space to do this on my own and serve it on my own with things like Centro and AppNexus, first of all, you got to pay just to do it. You got to pay just to turn the switch on, and then you still got to pay money to advertise on it. And then there's no co-op funds because I'm doing it, right? So there's no shift involvement, therefore I can't use it. And it becomes very hard to explain why this audience costs more money to the guy at Spark 44 that doesn't understand what the hell I'm talking about. So it becomes a problem. But the agencies aren't there yet, especially in automotive, because if I ask them to get a LiveRamp integration, they're gonna be like, well, all right, now what do we do with it? So then it ends up me having to shift the conversation and to decide what to do with it. The strategy shouldn't come from the dealer. That's why you have to have a good strategic partner and know what they're talking about. But I probably met with 50 agencies in the last year, and I only came up with one that even had the resources available to even take my data via FTP, which took me 3 months just to get out of it, CDK to make it work, to put it somewhere. And that's just the challenge today that I see.
And can we address the elephant in the corner of the room? Getting access to DMS data is one of our biggest problems of getting better, right? Real-time access, API level access, a reasonable cost structure, and a reasonable security. The average dealer is probably paying 5 to 6 or 7 different companies management access fees. And I'm not saying people shouldn't make money for making sure things are secure, but it surely is a pain in the ass right now, and it's stifling innovation. Dealer groups, AutoNation's here, Lithia's here, Asbury, Sonic, obviously your group's here, lot of big groups. What do the vendors in this room have to hear? What are some of the unique challenges of dealer groups that you need resolved? If you had the opportunity, go ahead.
Integration. It was spoken as the answer of one of the questions you just had. What's the biggest problem we face? The truth is, everybody here, this isn't unique to dealer groups, but we go for best in breed. And the problem with that is that there is no cap, right? There is no integration. There's no cross-channel, cross-device marketing where you can say, okay, good job, ABC vendor, now let's cap you and we're going to move to DEF vendor, because there's no integration. The hard part between all of our specific dealerships is that there is no right marketing mix. There's no right vendor. There's only better than there was, and there's no standard in between. If there was a share of integration, was a share of data that we could select which data points we wanted to share between the groups, we could choose how we wanted to optimize our marketing mix specific to the integration of that vendor.
Okay. Other points. What are some unique challenges in your role managing multiple stores that this group needs to hear?
I know one thing that I face often is, with the development of all these new technologies and strategies out there, it's one, getting the buy-in from, more than just one GM to be able to test and develop my own benchmarks. I often run into something where, I finally get the buy-in and then the GM will only run it for, a month, and I don't get that data set to be able to truly make an evaluation and see if it's something that would make sense group-wide. So I think, that's definitely one of the issues, is developing those internal benchmarks when you don't have buy-in from the entire group.
Yeah, that is a challenge.
Or when
What
you're
else?
representing multiple markets and multiple brands. So.
Ben, what's unique, do you feel, in your role? How many stores are you managing now?
So we have 14 stores and 14 brands. One of the pain points is just trying to navigate all of the different programs, different vendors, different co-op requirements, different brand compliance across 14 brands. I mean, I could get 20 people working full-time and we still wouldn't figure it out. And then you layer in, you need to do a website review for every store. And while you may have 4 DDC sites, you have 4 different people, one from Subaru, one from here, one from there. Some of the calls are great, and I'll just say some of them aren't so great. I won't give you the ratio, but it's a full-time job just understanding who to talk to, who to get help from. The person that kills it at this store, or this brand, excuse me, can't help you on the other thing. It's a shame.
So within the OEM programs, so dealer.com may have four exclusive programs. CDK has probably 4 or 5 exclusive programs, but those account reps could be very different. So your VW account rep would be different than your Chevy account rep, theoretically.
Yeah, and there's just a huge disparity in terms of reps across these different vendors. Like I said, some are great, like some are the best. Some of my vendor partners in this room, I've told them, like, you're the best level of support I've ever had. I wish everyone was like you. They're just not.
Great. Anybody else want to address this question? Anything that's unique that this vendor community needs to hear if we're going to change? Anything comes to mind? Okay, let's move to the next question. How much time? I'm going to go down the line. We'll start with Peter. Peter, how many stores are you looking over?
Technically 8 or 12 domains total with group sites.
Okay.
I think the time that we messed, I can tell you, I'm at 17 days for September now, trying to make it work. So, and I know that sounds ridiculous in total time, but it's true because I'm trying to get the agency to ingest the sales data that's not part of the group single customer database and to make it all look right. And then it breaks and it doesn't show up right. And then this GA tag was in the wrong place. And then with the same group site showing the data twice. And then I couldn't get it to all line up. So we got it all figured out because we started in August. So the answer is that it's going to get less, but I could spend, the first part of my day is 3 or 4 hours, and I'm just looking at data that's not making us money yet. I'm just trying to see what to look at it, how to make sense of it, to try to take some knowledge out of it. Or most of the time, it's like, why isn't that cell populating? Like, why is it 0, right? Or why is it negative 400 cars sold today? Whatever the case may be, right?
Right.
That's
So much time chasing problems.
Yeah, basically putting out the fire, even in my own data report that I created myself in Studio, which I'm not even supposed to know how to do. I'm like, why did that not work? And it's because this vendor, that vendor, the report didn't populate and that login, and then all of a sudden I'm trying to piece it all back together.
Brings up a great point. Would anybody in this room be interested in having a service that just notified you when your data breaks? Think about that. There's the ability in Google Analytics to set an alert, right? If your lead goal goes to 0, if your phone call goal goes to 0. How about that take away? How about knowing when your primary conversion channels stop working? How about sending yourself an email? But wouldn't it be interesting, Cox, CDK, Dealer Inspire, Dealer eProcess, everyone here, when something stops being consistently in a data field, that alert gets out? And don't be afraid to share it. Because what happens, some of you say, yeah, we have those alerts, but it takes us 5 days to fix it, and we don't want our customers to know that we just screwed up their data for 5 days. They deserve to know. Yes or true? Is that true? Don't they deserve it? Ben, how much time a month do you think?
Until a couple of weeks ago, I had a full-time employee that was basically doing the reporting, making sure things were accurate. When things broke, they were fixed. Full-time resource. Yeah, 40 hours a week.
Lauren, how about in your organization?
I wish I had more time to do this. This is a huge challenge. With 24 stores, it's pretty much just myself and one other. And the thing that I find is, I'm doing the calls. I'm, a couple weeks out of the month, I'm, constantly reviewing all these reports. But it's the point of digging deeper and actually, creating some action items from looking at them. That's the hard part. It's one thing to just check and be like, okay, are we doing better or worse than last month, last year? Okay, tick that box and then move on. For me, I would like it to be a full-time position, to have one person to dig in and not only just look at the data and ensure we're performing at the level, but also creating actionable items with it.
Yeah, I think that we've heard this general rule that some of the larger dealer groups have a competitive advantage because maybe they hire an MBA to look at their business. Data science professionals have to move into larger dealer groups. It's just absolutely a must just keeping track of the stuff and wait till you hear from Christian and our speakers tomorrow. We probably, I'm not going to mention numbers, but the largest dealer groups here are spending, 50, 75, 100, $120 million a year in advertising. Do you think hiring enough qualified people to really dig into the data could change outcomes? It can. What about your organization? How much time, how many people are involved in reviewing your marketing?
In our digital marketing team, 21 of us look at all 61 stores probably 20 to 30% of our time. I really don't think that's a problem, too. I think it's extremely valuable for us to be informed. I don't think we should hold ourselves to any other standard either. I mean, if we're not informed, how are we going to be the analysts that we tell the dealerships how to spend their money? What I do think that is wasted time is creating the reports, right? Getting in Excel and creating a spreadsheet, whatever it is. But at the same time, without that deep level of integration and knowledge, we don't know what to advise.
Right. So the inefficiencies of bolting together your own reports is the biggest thorn. Ben, you were going to say something?
I think one of the struggles is getting the buy-in from leadership to get the support you need to look into those reports. So no doubt you should be looking at them. You should be digging in. Most of us will probably agree we don't have the time to do it. That's why you're asking the question, right?
Right.
But there's 21 of you for 61 stores. That's a pretty good ratio. There's one of you for 24 stores. That's not a good ratio.
Right?
And I think it's challenging. Part of the challenge is that we don't get the audience we need until something's broken.
Okay, good.
I probably spend a day, a week. We got 20, depending on how you count it, 21, 25, or 29 if you include all the kind of non-OEM stuff. The biggest challenge for this from our position is not telling dealers what's gone on, but actually taking that data and turning it into some sort of strategy that helps them be able to see what we've changed. To tell a dealer they had a shitty month via Excel report doesn't really do much for anyone, other than make you less valuable as an employee, because at some point they're going to get tired of the bad news. So
is that the shoot the messenger?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think there's a knowledge, absent of and I don't mean to beat the same drum, but absent of the vendor providing any value to the relationship at all, it comes down to guys like us to not paint the vendor bad, because that would be easy to go, I hit Cox, I hit CDK earlier, to go, Auto Trader sucks, cancel it. It's not that simple, but to dealers, sometimes it is. We go back to the lead conversation or whatever. You kind of got to pick your battles, and as you analyze things, laying down a 3-page Excel spreadsheet that shows interaction points on the website may be valuable to you, but at the end of the day, how do I drive more traffic into the showroom, and how do you change that conversation? I think that has become my responsibility.
So what I'm hearing is that you have all the data you need, you can crunch all the data, but what's the strategy? What's that next launch point that will help a general manager understand that you, in your role and your team, is actually providing value in the ecosystem? And that's what I want to challenge the vendors here in the room. Our integrations are a hot topic, but we need to be able to start working on what to do next. And Thomas and I talk about this in the book. What is your next best dollar? Where do you spend your next best dollar to increase your outcomes? Because we are flooded with data. But we probably, if we were honest, except for the most sophisticated groups, it would be a stretch to say we have a digital strategy based on data. It would be a stretch. Paul?
I got to agree. I guess I'm the small guy in the bunch here with only have 7 stores that I work with, but I think it's probably around 20%. And like everybody else, I would like to spend a lot less time compiling and a lot more time using that information to do something better for my stores, get a little better.
Okay. Judd, your Morgan Auto Group is on fire, growing so fast. How much time are you guys spending on wrapping all the data together?
Too much.
Yeah.
And when you're going through a bullish mode as we are, there are enough processes that you've got to try to create that are universal, and then trying to assimilate all the data and try to, I mean, it takes a week or two to go through all my vendors, and that's why I've tried to go as we, with our 3 Honda stores and et cetera. So when you have groupings of stores, and if I can deal with similar vendors for my website providers, I try to get a single point,
Right.
a singular point person, and say, look, I need this report. I don't care what's important to you. This is what's important to my dealership. This is what I need. Screw your reports. This is what I need. And give me an executive level report. I need these data points. I don't care. You don't think that's important. It's important to my group. And when it becomes apparent to me that it's either not important or it's not the direction we want to head, then I'll let you know, because we're paying them a ton of money. We're paying all of our vendors a ton of money. They should do what we need them to do and provide us the value that they bring to the table, and it should meet in the middle. It shouldn't be that, well, this is what we do, this is what you do, but what we do is more important than, and it's going to make you sell cars. No, what we have people that know how to sell cars, and then folks like us that are kind of a little hybrid of both. We have our thumb on the pulse. I mean, I have 15 stores under my purview, and I need consistency and streamlined processes. I mean, I'd say 20 to 25 hours a week regularly, and then at the end and beginning of the month, I'm inundated.
Yep.
It's just, it's overwhelming.
And I have large, and mid-sized dealer groups that are buying a lot of stores. And do you know what their marketing manager is doing? Ben, you know this, and others, is that when you're in acquisition mode, what's that marketing manager doing? Going crazy. Man, it would be a great service if some vendors in this room figured out when your clients are on a high growth mode that you lend them some extra resources. Because here's what happens. When you're buying stores, and one of the reasons why Danny Hart couldn't make it from Bohanka, they're on a growth mode. And she goes, Brian, I am just dealing with so many things, and here's what happens. They can't have the time anymore to inspect the existing stores, right? Do you understand that kind of broken thing? If you're really understanding data as a strategic asset, we need protected people in the larger dealer groups that are not distracted by putting out fires and that really have the time to look at the data. I have my opinions on OEM programs. I've written about them. But Google AdWords itself is the most loved product in OEM co-op programs. Those of you who were early advertisers in Google, do you remember those days when you didn't have to spend a lot of money and you got a lot of leads? But today, everyone's in the pool. In fact, some OEMs require every dealer to be in the pool, whether or not they want to be in or not, whether they believe in AdWords, you have to be in. So anybody want to field this? How are you looking at AdWords today differently than maybe 5 years ago? And I want to go back to Max's presentation. I thought the how many rods are in the same pool. I want to be very clear that it's my belief if you're dealing with an agency that's only using a Google audience, every Tom, Dick, and Harry can use the Google audience. You need AI, you need machine learning, you need an ecosystem to perform. That's my opinion. And that if you're only, using the Google AdWords console, it's tough to compete. What do you guys say? Somebody want to hit this? How do you see AdWords today differently, or is it the same?
Are you guys doing any own AdWords by yourself by any chance? Sometimes. So I started doing this. I actually took one of your advice on this. I do my own generic brand name keywords, and I took that away from the agency. The reason is they put it in my report, and yeah, I'm going to get an 11% click-through rate on Warren Henry Infinity when they search for Warren Henry Infinity, right? And half the time it's my BDC, and we've already fixed most of that. So AdWords as a whole with the OEM relationship.
And Peter, that's the first time I've ever heard that. So it must be a unique problem with your BDC leadership.
I think that AdWords is going to be AdWords. It's a tool that we're supposed to use properly. If we're all on one vendor doing the same PPC role with the same mentality, and we don't participate in making it a bi-directional relationship, and we all use, let's say, whether it be Cox or a CDK tool, then we're all going to run the same type of system. So I believe that we'll drive up the cost per click all the same way, and Google's not going to tell us that we're doing that. We're just going to keep on competing the same way with the same keyword, Range Rover Sport, 2016, four-wheel drive. We're all going to use the same mentality, and it's going to cannibalize ourselves. They're just going to tell us to keep spending more because that's their prerogative. That's Google. That's how they make their money. So yes, using a different audience is a necessity. There are several other advertising channels outside of like the Google Display Network that actually perform a lot better than the Google Display Network. I would actually suggest sometimes not using it. And when I brought that up to my GMs, they're like, what do you mean not use Google? And I'm like, because I don't even know how to explain it to them, to be honest. And it's very challenging, Jumpstart and this and things like that, even within the Cox network. They have people that only want to look at cars on car properties, as opposed to like somebody trying to convince me on mayors.com to do something like buy a Range Rover. Yeah, I understand the same kind of person. I can get some data. Can I convince you to buy a $110,000 Range Rover autobiography from a display ad? The answer is probably no. It's not going to happen that directionally, right? So anyway, AdWords as a strength is something we all certainly need to use. I think Bing is still important organically as well, but we have to use it smart. If we all use it the same way, it's not going to be as cost effective, but it's going to work.
Anyone else want to add to that? Go ahead.
Well, first, I appreciate, Brian, that your question wasn't loaded at all, and
No.
you didn't have an opinion on it or
No.
bias. Love it or hate it, AdWords has given us a whole lot to be grateful for. We can now see a lot more than we ever could before, and we now have a different standard for data, right? We can measure just about everything that happens, from even including those things that don't happen, right? We get the impressions, we see what's available to us. I agree completely with Peter, though, is that the problem is with Google is they have a very, very specific subset of people, right? And when you utilize another, I mean, there's a credit bureau institution in here that has great data that you can also utilize that Google has no hands on. Right. And they're holding it close to the chest, as they should. And so I don't think you need to abandon AdWords, and I don't think you need to invest in AdWords any more than any other vendor partner, any other relationship out there that you have, because it's just another piece of the puzzle.
Yes. And let me be clear, I'm not anti-AdWords, but I think it's odd that in 2017, outside of our efforts to create some type of standards, that any other multi-billion-dollar business would have been getting advice from Google to be installing Tag Manager, tracking events, creating weighted event-based quality scoring, to bring in better quality metrics into AdWords. There's no policing, and that's the thing that pisses me off, is that dealers have no problem spending money if they know it's working. Isn't that true? And if you set them up with reports, the average AdWords agency has just said, and Google just says, hey, well, you can put out pretty much whatever shitty reports you want. That's the truth. Hey, number of visits, number of clicks, number of page views, time on site, how many leads, and that has been okay for 10 years. You can look at that data all day long and you can't get better. That's my problem. And maybe it's an agency problem. Maybe it's, but you heard from John Clavendasher this morning. Google is coming out with new tools and basically telling their resellers, stop jerking around the customers and give them the data they need and give them the transparency they need. That was so refreshing when John shared that story. That Google themselves are saying, guys, you haven't been completely transparent, and you've been taking more and more money because people have just been buying our brand, and you've been bastardizing the brand. That was the most refreshing conversation this morning I had with John. Here's some other things. Digital retailing. This is a fun one. I am not a digital retailing expert. It's phenomenal buzz right now. Everyone's talking about it. As I talk to marketing managers across the country, I hear all differing opinions. Everything sucks. This is great. Boy, it's inflexible. Oh, it's really flexible. I don't know what to make of it yet. Anybody want to share their experience on your piloting or trying to roll out digital retailing? What are the problems? Go ahead.
Digital retailing, I think, isn't there. It's coming. I have a lot of feels about this stuff.
That's a little creepy, the way that sounds.
Yeah, well, it's creepy to me because everyone keeps talking about it and telling us that that's how customers want to buy cars. And it's scaring dealers because it's taking all of our profit points out. Taking trade appraisals away from used car manager, taking vehicle selection away from a qualified sales agent, taking F&I away from a finance manager, and putting us in a position, at least in my state, where I've got a 3-day right of decision if I deliver off-site. So, and let's admit that none of the tools are very good. Customers don't know how to buy cars. I got salespeople who don't know how to sell cars. Customers don't know how to buy cars, and it's really worrisome. Yeah. It's really.
Hey, by the way, that wasn't as much applause as Peter got
Hey,
earlier.
I'm not.
I
There's
just
no
want to go on
competition.
record.
Gentleman's handsome and he's smart.
That's
it.
right.
But I do think that there needs to be. I don't want to be first to this race. I'd rather be the best to this race. I'm working with JM&A to try to present something that at least gives the customers an opportunity to make an educated decision on F&I. But I think until you do that, customer spends 18 to 20 hours researching one car, or researching before they get down to pick the car. Do you really want them picking a bad photo on your website or starting to make decisions based on that instead of brick and mortar? It's just a scary thing. And then everyone says, well, Amazon's going to do it. Amazon's not going to do it until it makes money. They're not going to watch a whole bunch of dealers fail. They may present an option for me to pay them to provide some sort of financial tool. Carvana's done a great job of putting a tool in place. I don't know if their product is there, but their stock price says it is. And
Yep.
I think they could take their really good digital retailing product, sell it to all the dealers, and they'd be in good shape. But
Or maybe Amazon just buys Carvana.
correct. So
What are some other thoughts? Ben, digital retailing.
So I've spun my wheels a lot looking at different products out there. I think at one point I was a professional researcher of the products. We haven't done much with them. If you were to believe the data that's out there that says people aren't ready for it, I think you need to dig into that a bit more. People aren't ready because, I'm going to shock you, they don't always trust car dealers, and they don't trust that something's going to work, and they're not used to it, right? So adoption isn't there for people to buy cars online, I don't think. However, if we talk to Dealer Inspire about Online Shopper, they will show us data that says people are using their tool a lot. I think the key to a tool is making so it's flexible enough that someone can choose their own adventure, right? They may not want to buy the car online, but maybe they want to get the payments figured out. Maybe they want to get the app in. Maybe they want to send the pictures and the description of the trade and have that ready, so they save 57 minutes when they go into the dealership. On the topic of F&I and losing profit there's potential for that, but someone correct me, I won't have the stat correct, but it's like something like 91% of people would consider buying F&I product if they had the opportunity to consider it before they go into what we've been told is the principal's office in F&I to buy it. So I think there's opportunity if merchandised appropriately. I think it's going to continue to be a topic of conversation. It's only going to get better, and we have to get better at it. It's not going to go away, that's for sure.
So I've actually piloted some programs for this because it was on my radar, about a year ago. And what I found was initially a lot of the products seemed to just be catered towards those low funnel. And to your point, I think it needs to be something that is going to be, whether they're an early shopper or, ready to convert right there, we need to be able to offer them some added value if we're going to guide them through the process. So here's a little plug, but I've actually been using Perk, and that's something that they did really well. So when they bring, and I think we need to educate the consumers on what it is and like what the options are to do on the site. So with their new deal arrangement, there's a whole entry page where it explains to the shoppers, hey, you can use our site to get a trade evaluation. You can use our site to schedule a test drive to get special offers, and it kind of incentivizes them without without looking like that lead trap. And I think that's what scares a lot of customers is, they don't want to do that low funnel black book credit application on the site. They want to feel like they're getting something out of it. So that's something that I think the Perk experience does really well. And it helps guide, even if it's an early shopper, what kind of vehicle do you want? If you're assuming that the customer already knows, there's potential that we could, help guide them and find something that they didn't know already. And one thing I like is the collection of the customer information. You get all those data points. So if you know the customer, one of the questions is like, do you have a family? Are you a couple? That's conversation topics that if you really trained your team well, that's data that you could really facilitate a whole separate kind of conversation when you reach out to them and give that value to the customer, both real time when they're on the site doing it, but also when you follow up with them. But I think the biggest thing is that you need to be able to handle the increased traffic when you have these increase in leads and have a team in place that understands the different kind of value points you're getting and how to approach the customer on them.
I've heard some comments from dealers around the country that digital retailing today is just a tool to create super leads. Have you heard that statement? It's like, you're really not doing digital retailing. It's just creating super leads, like better quality leads that, close better. Paul, are you doing any testing with digital retailing?
Yeah, we are, and I don't think my opinion is different, but I think I have a pretty positive outlook about what some of these tools will do, and the one I'm working with right now is Online Shopper, and we're working together to kind of make that product better. But I think that the biggest thing that is helping us with understanding where our friction points are with customers. You can kind of tell by how far they'll go in those digital retailing tools about what their pain points are, right? So, as we're trying to figure these things out and prevent disruption in our business, I think these online shopping tools help us figure that out. Does that make sense?
So you're really seeing digital retailing today is not expecting it to be perfect, but really as a new way, just like any e-commerce, how many abandoned shopping carts, right? Where did they drop off in the sales funnel? That this digital retailing tool would give you a profile of your Subaru shopper in your market and what's hot to them and where they're failing.
Right. What's the biggest failure of digital retailing? It's linear, right? It goes one direction. And you mentioned the Perk thing, and that's a pretty cool looking product, right? So we're making assumptions, and vendors are making assumptions about what customers want to do, and then we're sticking them in the same thing that they do in the store, which is a linear, you go this, and then you do the trade appraisal, and then you do, and that's wrong. Customers have been telling us for a long time they don't want that process. They want to pick where they want to start and move on from there and get the information from you. And they're willing to trade some of their information for the privilege, but until we're delivering that, we don't have an online a digital retailing tool.
And one of the things I didn't hear today in my previous conversations with Max or James Grace is if you have this ecosystem, couldn't you be taking some of this offsite data and really dynamically through AI create a different digital retailing experience based on the individual customer, right? That to me is super important. One of the things that I liked about Perk when I first saw them, and I know we mentioned Perk a few times, but it's a brand new company that came on my radar because clients were liking what they were doing. When I got the product demo, they said if somebody, how you put like a trade-in banner over your SRPs, and a trade-in banner, right? Some type of banner for trade-in over your VDPs. Well, in their system, when somebody already fills out the trade, that call to action changes to something relevant. Why are you taking up prime real estate and saying trade in your car, trade in your car? The consumer's like, I already traded in my car. And the fact that banner could change because they remembered what the consumer did, I think that's really cool. I'd like to see that in digital retailing. So if they're on Edmunds or Car Gurus or KBB or Auto Trader and they're doing certain things, and then every time they come back, this data set is growing, I bet through machine learning and testing we can create a better, so it's not linear, Paul, right? A more dynamic custom journey based on shopping preference. Questions from the audience. These are some really smart people here. Russ, we have a microphone over here. Somebody grab that, give that to Russ. Russ heads up analytics for Lithia.
Well, heads up.
Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, is it on? Okay. So we have an update in the digital team about branded search keywords.
Branded search.
With a really good SEO department or partners and the Google My Business, what is the benefit of owning your branded search? If I just saw in a presentation from Experian, aka Stream DPS, is 1% if they search for your branded term will go to another competitor. That's what he said. So why would you want to buy your branded search? Now, it might not seem much because it might be cheap, but if you add it up to 166 times, that's a lot of money.
So
what do you
Russ, in
guys-
general, from what you're saying, how much would a single point store spend in buying their store name
Well, I
a
was
month?
looking at the other groups as far as have
Right,
they-
but in general.
yes.
What do you think that
Has
number
anybody
is?
had the gumption to just not pay for branded search?
Yeah, that's the question. So has anybody here made the logical decision that I'm not going to buy my dealership's name in Google AdWords? Paul? Okay.
I mean, it was pretty simple. We built a pretty strong brand, and there's not a branded search term in my market that brings up anything that doesn't bring up the everything there about us without competitors showing up. So as long as that, why would I spend the money?
Okay.
It's just if that changes, maybe we'll go back to spending money. But now we do in mobile. That's
Because
kind
the
of a
screen
smart- yeah,
size
'cause
is
the-
smaller, okay.
the
But
format,
not in desktop.
But yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Even though it's cheap, it's money that I can spend somewhere else.
How long have you been doing that?
At least 18 months, maybe longer. Yeah.
Sales suck, but
But I also-
it was a great decision.
We set records this year.
Yeah.
I will say though that we are in a market where we have the tier 2.5, pay-per-click programs where some of that competition is kind of gentleman's agreement to keep out of that space. But I don't have competing brands. I don't have do a little bit on one brand side, but for the most part, I think we've realized that there's just not a lot of value in going up and buying competitors' brand names, and about the only people that do that is the OEMs.
And I wrote an article recently making a suggestion to marketing managers, which wasn't necessarily popular with agency professionals, including my own team. But the idea was, if you accept monthly marketing reports from your agency that average in the branded campaigns to all your other campaigns, shame on you. I was in a dealer presentation recently with one of these panelists, and the rep came in and said, okay, the store spent $8,000. This is how many impressions. This is how many clicks. This is how many conversions. And I said, can
Oh, they give you a bounce rate too.
And it was like, you're killing it. Can we spend more money? Can we roll it out to all the other stores? And I just raised my hand. I was going to be quiet. I really was. I said, can I please see the breakdown by campaign? Oh, we're not prepared to discuss that. I said, but hold on, you're asking me to spend more money. Here's what I found out. 90% of the conversions were based on branded keywords sent to the homepage. And here was the suggestion I made. Why pay if you're on a commission-based, aside from OEM restrictions and co-op? If co-op wasn't the issue, a multi-store group could set up, as Peter mentioned, buying your dealership name and your brand and city and send all that traffic to the homepage and not pay any commission, not have that in some convoluted report, and then tell the agencies, if you have really great ad tech, go ahead and deliver on the hard stuff. That's not really a popular conversation with agencies, but it's the truth. Please do not accept roll-up digital advertising reports. Break them out by strategy. Branded, conquest, new cars, used cars, fixed ups. Let each campaign stand on its own. When you average them up, you're actually doing a lot of brain damage that's unnecessary.